We will now transition to the audience Q&A portion of tonight's event, which Amaya and I will moderate.
So we know everyone has plenty of questions for our incredible speakers. So now is the time to use the chat function located at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions regarding tonight's lectures on hope and hopelessness, living the paradox of 2020. So we're gonna try our best to present as many questions as possible, but we may not get to them all, so.
I'm gonna go ahead and start us off with our first question. Please send your questions in the chat below. Professor Lacey called us to focus on our goals to get over our problems. Professor Bradley called on us to hope less, do more. Professors Forney and Kressbach reminded us that the scale of problems spans the technological, often beneath our awareness. Technology can help our health, but also reduces us to mere vehicles of work. Professor Woodson Bolton reminded us that we face problems that we created together, and therefore we must solve them together. Professor Pendharkar found connectivity in the nothing that we faced in April, and Professor Smith asked us to find hope and solve problems. These are bold calls, big calls, so big they might seem too big for one person. Where does the individual begin to start? Any takers?
I saw a great tweet today, actually, that talked about the individual action as fertile ground for growing collective action from a climate activist. And I thought that was really beautiful. I think, you know, when my students and I tackle questions like the Anthropocene and climate change, it feels so overwhelming. But what I was really trying to get across today is we have to remember that all of the problems that all of us talked about, technology and racism and inequality and climate change, we produce them. So I really think the first thing is to remember that, first of all, to study. Like, your studying is activism, because understanding the world is so important. And it's in finding what makes sense, what helps you make sense of the world, that's going to be part of the contribution you make to the world. So I really think that you as students are already doing a ton. Also, I just want to say vote, because voting is also really important, and we have a really consequential election coming up in 2 weeks. Tell your friends to vote, tell people across the country to vote. And don't fall into despair. I think despair is the enemy of action. And so I think if you even can do a small thing that makes you feel better, and remember that learning is part of that.
So here's something that I've found to be a pattern. So let's say I'm directing a play, right? Let's say I'm working with other actors, and let's say that these actors have their cell phones with them. So we're running lines, we are blocking, trying to come up with a way to form a show, right? But every once in a while, the phone will vibrate. Someone would get a message. This is in the middle of us trying to come up with a project. A person could be trying to memorize their lines, and the phone would vibrate. And so they would look at the phone and lose what it was that they were memorizing. And what I can say to you is that that's by design. The world is in such a place now that the distractions are almost infinite. And with those infinite distractions, you feel overwhelmed. You feel that you cannot focus. You feel that you're losing grip with reality, when in fact, you're just making things more complicated by having too many things in your circle. Focus on one thing at a time. Will Smith is supposed to be famous now for saying one brick, right? Put one brick. Don't think about building a wall, just think about one brick at a time, and then eventually you will have a wall. In our society, we have tons of bricks, and they're not used to build walls. They're being used to throw at you. And you're dodging those bricks. but you're not being able to focus because of those distractions. So I cannot stress enough the power of having a goal, the power of being creative and thinking about ways to overcome any obstacle to obtain that goal. And once that goal is achieved, then think of another. And you do that person by person by person by person. Then eventually you'll have a group of people, just like you have a wall. So that's my thought. I hate that you feel overwhelmed, and I get it. But just come down to simplicity. Don't walk into a learning environment with your phone. You're going to be distracted. Just keep it simple. Yeah.
Can I piggyback off of that? And one of my students asked me in the chat, I was making a movie for Lifetime as a director in the spring, and I had a course offload to do it. And, you know, 2 years earlier, I made an independent film called 20 Weeks that got a lot of attention. And I was sent everywhere, all around Hollywood, to meet with everyone and talk to everyone. And I went and met with people on TV shows, and I was incredibly overwhelmed. And I think in that time, I lost myself a little bit. And the movie that I was on in the spring completely shut down, and I had to come home and sit on my couch and be very sad for 10 days. And then I had to just really look deep into myself and remember that if you're a creator, you have to create. And I went back in and I started picking back up on old writing projects that I hadn't looked at in 2-3 years. And I have to say, it's really, I feel like it's been very, very rewarding. And I feel like I'm a much happier person than I was a year ago. You know, the quiet has forced me to look at things in new ways.
Yeah, I'm not going to take up much time because the people were so smart before me. But one of the things that I think we do to young people is make it seem as though everybody has to be a leader. And that's poppycock. Everybody can't be a leader. So if you're not the kind that will, that can lead the troops against the counter protesters or something like that, then be the first follower. If you can't be a good leader, then be a good follower and find somebody good to lead. So I think that's one thing that you could do, and it relieves a certain kind of anxiety. I think another thing is you have to control what is in your own power. And so what that means is if you're not the kind of person that's up for demonstrations or for protest or for anything like that, maybe you're the kind of person that has enough money to donate to the bail fund or something like that. Or maybe you're the kind of person that can contact somebody's family to let them know that such and such is okay. I guess my point in all of this is that oftentimes we take the troubles of the world and put them on our individual shoulders, as Professor Woodson Bolton explained. But we can only control what we can control. So whether that means saying boo when you don't agree with something in a meeting, just try it one time. Just say boo and see what happens. It'll make you feel better. Or if that means asking in your class tomorrow, where do Black people fit in this paradigm? Try it out and see where you go from there. Give it a shot. All right.
Thank you to all of our speakers to that question. For our next question, the initial questions that we received actually concerned mostly career-based things. Rightfully so, students are quite concerned about their futures, about what steps they should be taking in preparing themselves for next steps. And those next steps seem even more ambiguous now, given everything going on. So to each of you, what would you recommend that students do meaningfully with their time and skills here and now for moving forward in not just their lives, but in their careers as well?
Well, let me take that because I feel passionately about this topic. If you take that hopelessness perspective, oh, there's no jobs out there, the economy's changing, what's a post-pandemic recovery going to look like? You become almost this learned helplessness. Better to say this is a time where everything is so different in the way we learn, in the way we collectively speak to each other, in the way we collaborate, in the way we engage in social movements. look at how that's happening virtually and take this time to develop those skills in agility, the ability to pivot, the ability to have that kind of entrepreneurial mindset, not being afraid to fail forward. And then when you're talking to that first employer, talk about this time of challenge and how you became resilient, how you overcame those challenges. That story is a chance for you to really demonstrate there is nothing you can't throw at me. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to learn along the way. And that's a very powerful skill set that you just have to demonstrate to an employer. And that's far more powerful than staying at home and saying, let's just wait till it gets better. So jump in and just enjoy the exploration and the adventure and the discovery of who you are and what you can do.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I think if you want to make something happen, you have to make it happen. And when I first came to Los Angeles and Hollywood as a screenwriter, I got told so many times that nobody wants to look at your screenplay because it has a woman in the lead. It has a person of color in the lead. Nobody wants to watch those movies. Nobody wants to see those shows. And, you know, the only way to survive was to make your own shows, to make your own movies, to make your own independent films. And I think that that's what I would encourage all of you to do, is to find a way to connect with your tribe, make something and put it out into the world.
Yeah, I think that that's great. I would also say, take advantage of the amount of time we spend watching things right now. That cultivating like good skills of watching closely and thinking really critically about the things that appear on screens right now, I think will be essential moving forward. And if you can cultivate that visual acuity and that kind of visual criticism mode, I think that that's applicable to careers right across fields.
Yeah, I don't mean to be basic, but most of all survive. Like, these are hard times. Like there's no doubt about it. Like, survive. Like, whether that means you figure out how to breathe and sleep, figure out how to do those things. Like, take account of the things. One of the things that I'm really working on is trying to be thankful for the things that I have. You know, I think a lot of us lost money because of this COVID thing. A lot of us lost a whole bunch of things, but I'm thankful for the things that I do have. And I know that with these things, I'm going to survive. And so encourage yourself that you will survive this. You may not thrive through this moment. I know superstars like Dean Smith, look, they'll learn 4 or 5 different languages through the COVID pandemic and that sort of thing. They'll be ready to rock and roll. But some of us will have to survive it. And there's glory in that, because if you survive it, you can fight again at another time. So survive is the big deal for me.
With that, we're going to move on to another topic. So Dr. Forney, quite a few students are feeling hopeless about the recommendation systems you spoke about. Can you please talk more about the technological solutions you mentioned? And can you also discuss how you think, I'm just gonna read the question. What general directions do you think our technological innovation should be moving to fix those problems of bias?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't think anyone has the answer right now. And even in my own research, I think we're at the stages of just assessing how bad things are. And one of the recent studies we've been working on to make some machine learning solutions that can even assess when some stimulus, some online article from a various news source is going to elicit some bias. We actually took a few articles on the same topic from Fox, CNN, and BBC, and then we had people rate whether or not they were biased or not. But the twist was we randomized what source they saw it coming from. So they might have seen the Fox article coming from CNN and vice versa. And we can see that even just the label of which one of these camps they have seen as the source of this political, discourse on some topic is enough to affect their perceptions of how much they buy into it. So I'd say for any solution, you have to take a look in the mirror first. And any solution that you develop has to help others take a look in that same mirror. And I think whenever we talk about bias, especially in the political spectrum, we immediately jump to thinking, oh, it's the other guys, it's the other side that's biased, it's not us. But when we look at that picture, there were just as many blue dots clustered as there were red dots. And so I would say step one is to make yourself a consumer of as much different information from as many sides as you can, just so you know what's out there, and so that you know whether or not you're in a bubble. And then secondly, you have to think about how you can bring or make tools that will motivate or make easier others to do the same. Because, by analogy, it's really tough to lose weight if you're going to restaurants where 80% of the menu is a burger. And with recommender systems, it's really difficult to, remain unbiased if 80% of what you see, and usually it's more, is material that is just in agreement with your worldview. So I'd say that a major part of reaching the other side, whichever side you consider yourself on, in bringing us back to a feeling of union is making sure that you look in the mirror and you can develop some tools to help others do the same.
Thank you, Dr. Forney. For our next question, we have quite the question here from Kieran, so I'm going to read this one out. A common thread that I noticed in all of your talks was a call to action to change the conditions of our culture. Yet, I think that the defeat of our attempts at producing such change is part of the reason we're having this talk in the first place. Black Lives Matter protesters gassed and beaten, Breonna Taylor's murderers given a slap on the wrist, the vehement denial of truth and glorification of violence and toxic racist Nietzschean principles perpetrated by the supporters of certain politicians, and the incredible corruption at every level of our democracy. Naturally, we can't just back down in the face of even incredible adversity reasons that should be obvious, but it's hard to have faith that your efforts will be rewarded when the change you want to see after your dreams get shattered again and again. How do we continue to motivate ourselves to work to better our world, even when it seems that change is impossible? Is it better to leave the hope of change behind, but keep trying regardless, or to hold on to that hope no matter what?
Can the historian, and Kieran knows this. I think once you take a longer view, and we all know that the arc of justice is long, right? But the arc of justice is long, but the arc of it, oh my God, I'm not saying that right. Somebody's gonna correct me on that. The point is that if you take the longer view and you look at our history, and that's, so much of my craziness as somebody who studies European history and European imperialism and global history, is that we have been terrible at looking at our history. If you face it head on and you see where we came from, you will know that as hard as now is, it is nothing to what has been done. What's been done in our name, for me as a white woman, the privilege that I just was born with, right, out of racialized slavery that created this country. So I think if you look at a longer view, and again, if you study history, you know where you start the story, that makes a huge difference. So go back deeper and then realize it's not even really a question of hope. Right now, it's not a choice. We have to fight and we have to work together, because seriously, our lives are on the line. And I say this as someone who, organized for a no-car day at UC Berkeley in 1991 because I was afraid of climate change. We called it global warming back then. And good God, did I never think that myself and my son would not be able to go outside for months at a time because of our goddamn asthma, because of the fires. So, the pressures that are mounting, what we're feeling right now, it's all real. And I just want to emphasize what Professor Bradley said, which is we have to survive. And the reason we have to survive this moment is that's the only thing that's going to give us hope. And because the struggle to get it together and solve these problems, first of all, we can do it. People have been doing it. They've been fighting against these systems for hundreds of years, and they've been winning. And secondly, we have no choice. So that's my historical take on it.
Also, as a historian, I like to echo and expand, even if I might, on Professor Woodson Bolton's points, which are that, listen, people have been in this. These problems aren't new, and we come from people that have the great propensity for change. It's possible to change. Now, should you give up hope? I don't know if I see it that way. I think more than anything, you should be looking to imagine. One of the most deadly tools of the oppressor is to steal somebody's hope, to steal somebody's ability to imagine or reimagine things. I'm not willing to give over those tools. I'm not willing to give somebody my ability to think of things anew, or to believe that we'll make it. Out on the street, when I was out on the streets of Ferguson, one of the things that they always said is, I believe that we will win. And you had to believe that if you were going to stand in front of police officers or run from armored personnel vehicles. The people that came before us believed that they would win. Who am I to tell them otherwise? Who am I to cross what they had to say? So stick in. You're on the right side of this. I appreciate the question.
Here's something I want to say about that. There's I'm sure you all may have seen this on Instagram with the little black child and the little white child, and they run to each other and then they hug, right? You all seen that? So it's funny, we can see little children walk around, we can see a little black child walk around, we can see a little white kid walk around, right? And we see, wow, they're cute. The thing is that the black child and the white child do not see themselves as black or white. That's something that they later learn. And the question is, at what point did that become their reality? And that's the question that I have to ask you all. You're all fairly young in this world, right? This is all kind of new, and lots of you are probably just blown away at just how ridiculous it is. And in fact, I will tell you that if I were someone of an older generation, I would be embarrassed, because this is the world that they created. That's just the facts. This is the reality of their thoughts. This is the reality of their actions. This is the reality of the goals that they set. Whether they were cowardly or whether they were brave, it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, this place in which we live today are the results of those previous actions. And I would say to you, what are going to be your actions? All right, does that black child and that white child have to grow up and realize that they're white or black? Like, what will your choice be as a person when you have children, when you go out in the community, when you grow the community? Are you going to grow it the same way that it was grown? Remember, I'm a black man. All right, there's this talk about Karen. Karens are tired of being Karens, right? We get it. I'm sure it's exhausting being accused of being Karen. But you can only imagine how exhausted I am at being black all the time over everything. So there's a bit of pride that I have in being black, because I have to own that, because if not, you know, I'm a fool, because I got to look over my back because there are actually people trying to kill me. I have a target on my back. So that's my reality. And I woke up one day and I was like, damn, this is my reality. I am that black guy. I'm the guy that they made me out to be. And I had to learn that because I wasn't born knowing that. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of a person are you? The one person said they're going to make a change. One person went out and constantly made a change. It's like any show that we make, any production that we create. It's hard work making a production. It's hard work making a movie. It's hard work making a show. But you got to do it in order to get to the beauty of it, which is the final project, which everybody loves, but nobody loves the process. So I cannot stress to you enough, make the decision on how you want to make this world be, and do it from your point of view, one at a time. And that's all I can tell you, because it's just a process and you have to get there. So.
Okay, thank you. Our last question comes from Raymond, and there's also an internal follow-up that I'm going to add to it. Raymond asks all of the panelists, how do you, both as a general community member and as an individual, hold space for resting while also trying to survive / better our understandings of community / taking care of each other? And the addition to that question is, how do you show care and community in this age of social distancing?
I mean, I can start as the health person. So for me, I think the biggest lesson that you should take away from this is that health is not private or personal or individual, right? So when we think about care, right, we like to think about our self-care, right? Self-care is something that is circulating constantly in COVID. And I would highly encourage you to take the self away from care and to really try to rethink the way that caring for individual health is related to collective health. Which is not like a perfect example or perfect answer for what you're asking in terms of how do we care for ourselves, but to understand, right, that slowing down for yourself or taking moments for yourself, right, might be related to a larger kind of cause and for the good of others. I'll just pause there and let my other panelists speak on this.
Real quick, I think COVID has presented a great opportunity for us to just sit down, shut up, and listen. I think that that's the gift that this COVID brings. It's interesting because I always talk about health because I think it's amazing in the sense that you see the body go through its changes based off of what you do with it, right? You eat pizza every day, eventually there's a result. I find that interesting how that process happens. But COVID allows us to just sit down and listen. And I think that that's awesome for your mental health, just to sit down, maybe read a book, but just to sit still, look at the walls, and just kind of figure what you want to do, because this COVID came, people always say, we need to get back to normal. And I'm like, no, because normal is what brought this. We have to be responsible and accountable for what brought this. And this came from things that we were doing prior. So because of that, this COVID gives us a bit of a reset, allows us to sit down, to relax, to calm our minds, to get some mental health, to readjust, reacclimate, and then start over and go in a different direction, because the direction we were going in clearly does not work.
Yeah, and I think coming back to basics too. What do you need? What do you feel? What is it that you want? I mean, it sounds silly, but just 30 minutes of extra sleep in the morning from not having to commute. It feels like it's been a magical gift. It's like those tiny things of, you can't go to the gym, but maybe you can take a walk around the block. Maybe you can ride your bicycle to the grocery store. Maybe you can wear your mask and walk around with a neighbor that you never talked to. It's like those little tiny things of what do you need and what do you feel, is I hope what people can connect to.
I think one of the things that we should be able to do is to think about the most vulnerable, to think about the people who have the most to lose in this moment. And one of my prayers at night is that I'm able to offer whatever privilege I have to help those who are most at risk. And however that takes shape or form. And so in that way, it takes the onus off of us, and it puts the onus on our ability to do for others and to think about others and to center others. And that's a good thing. And I think it's good for our mental health in that way. And so thinking about the most vulnerable and trying to help wherever possible along those lines, doing all of that while surviving may put you in a place where at least you know you'll make it, and at least you know that you did something beyond yourself. And that's not easy to do in these moments, but I think it's helped me at least.
I know one of the things that's made a big difference for me is the way I think about what social distance means. If you're focused on the isolation, you're going to feel that isolation. So social distance is going to be really difficult. But when you use it as a chance to challenge yourself, to think creatively, how can I connect with people? How can I collaborate in new ways that might even be more meaningful? I'm finding in my role as a dean, I've actually gotten to know my faculty more in this environment than I was when I was on campus and so busy running from place to place. This has given me the chance to stop, and I think, you know, my colleagues here on the panel have talked about, you know, stopping to listen, stopping to really hear, stopping to connect. And perhaps this new medium allows that isolation to go away by looking at technology as a new way of engaging with each other, and then just really being creative about that.
I think, you know, I feel like a lot of times, and, you know, because I am somewhat critical of the industrial capitalism that has gotten us in this moment. And I really appreciated the comments people have been making about technology and work, and kind of seeing yourself as a productive cog. So, and the comment about, you know, self-care to become a more productive worker. And I think holding on to yourself, I mean, I was really glad that Professor Lacey talked about mental health. That's something that my family has been struggling with a lot, and we don't talk about it enough. It's real, and this is a special plea to, of course, my students, but everyone here. Don't take care of yourself so that you can be a productive worker. Take care of yourself because people love you. And take care of yourself in ways that also, and sometimes I think the way to take care of yourself is to take care of something else. Like it could be a plant, it could be a cat, it could be a tree that you say hi to. But connecting to other living things, and of course to people, is so important. And I also want to empower you to come to me, whoever, if you're not in my class, but come to one of us, come to Professor Zink if this semester is too much, because this semester is out of whack and weird. We just need to survive. And as I was saying to one of my students earlier today, like if we learn something as well, like we win. But you know, we need to survive because we need to get out of this. And then, as everyone's saying, we got to start reimagining. But we need you to do that. So you know, don't let us professors expect normal. Context is everything, and this is not a normal context.
Wow, thank you all so much. A round of applause for our panelists. Thank you all. I think that you've just shown us a great deal of care by giving your time and energy to us this evening. I personally really appreciate it, and I'm so thankful to all of you who have joined. As a last act of pursuing paths forward and perhaps even hope, I'd like to hand the mic off to Gabby Aranya to talk about a kind of door prize we'll be giving out right now.
Okay, hi everyone. So just wanted to take this moment to remind you all that Everything that you experience at LMU has an intention. We hope that through this event, you have a better understanding of what it means to become a global citizen, one who can take what they've learned here today and use that information to take informed and responsible action to address ethical, social, and environmental challenges and evaluate the local and global impacts of our individual and collective decisions. So in the spirit of making local and global impacts, it is now time for our philanthropic, I knew I was gonna get that word wrong, philanthropic drawing. The names of all the LMU students who are present today were pulled and added to this random name generator. So if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna share my screen. And as you can see, lots of names. And so we're going to draw 3 names, and these winners are going to have the opportunity to pick an LMU community partner or LMU department that they would like to support. A gift of $500 will be given to that partner in the winning student's name. May this inspire some hope in all of those who attended here tonight. So let's go ahead and draw the names. All right, first winner, and everyone should be able to see, is Andrew Bolin. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. Andrew Bolin, hopefully you're still here. And I'll give some instruction after we've picked our 3 winners. So that was winner number 1. Winner number 2, and we're gonna start this again. Winner number 2 is Brian Green. Brian Green, if you are still here, you're a winner number 2. Brian Green. And winner number 3, last winner. Let's do this again. I wish I had like dramatic music. Peter Reed. All right, so our 3 winners, hopefully you remember who you are. Winners, please privately send me your email in the chat feature. Name, first name, last name, and email, Lion email. And we're going to send you an email to provide you with the full list of LMU community partners. And remember that you may donate to an LMU community partner or LMU department. Respond with your choice and we'll take care of the rest. Thank you all.
Thank you, Gabby. To close our event tonight, and thank you all for hanging in there, I'd like to launch the poll that we had at the beginning. So at the beginning, there was 63% hopeful and 37% hopeless. Now I'm going to relaunch it and like to see what the audience is feeling to close our night. Oh my God, there's so much hope. And with that, go forward and have a wonderful evening. CBA students, if you're looking to scan for the CBA Advantage, please hang around. I will be sharing my screen with that shortly. Thank you all for your attendance. We really appreciate it. And another round of applause to our faculty presenters.